Greetings, maniacs, New Englanders, and everyone else. I hope this video finds you well. It is a dreary yet classically New England October day here. I did need to have 2 trees cut down in the backyard. One of them is still standing and is right next to the house and is rotten in the core and it's a danger. You may even hear the chainsaws outside. I'm excited to go and see the process after I'm done recording this video. The other tree, it's 150 years old and it was gorgeous. Honestly, I want to have a funeral for that tree because it had a whole personality. Like it was magnificent. And in the fall, it was beautiful. I only got to experience it one time last year, but I saw other pictures and it was a twin at one point. The other half, which was also gigantic, fell, but now the whole thing's gone. So it's a little sad, but while they're outside recording, I'm in here recording, while they're outside chopping up the tree, and it's a dreary day anyway, what better thing to do than record what is happening with Maine's ballot in just a handful of days, honestly. If you've been following along, you know I've been breaking down the questions one at a time, looking at them independently and in depth. The other videos, I'll include some links so that you can catch up if you want to. Each of the questions is individual and maybe you already know how you're going to vote in one way or another and you just want to get information about a particular question, or if you want to listen to them all. There really is no order that you have to listen to them. They were randomly chosen to be voted on in the order that they are. It was a random choice, no one controlled it, so it doesn't matter how you watch these videos. This is question 5 that we're dealing with. 5. So, I will start by reading the question itself. Do you favor amending the Constitution of Maine to change the time period for judicial review of the validity of written petitions from within 100 days from the date of filing to within 100 business days from the date of filing of a written petition in the office of the Secretary of State, with an exception for petitions filed within 30 calendar days before or after a general election? Woo! Excuse me. What? Okay. First off, let's go to Ballotpedia because they help make sense of things, at least to me. I'm not advertised or I'm not paid by them, no sponsorship, but in this case, very helpful. And I will take the help when I can get it. Main question 5, the change time period of judicial review of initiative petitions amendment is on the ballot in Maine as a legislatively referred constitutional amendment on November 7th. A vote yes supports this constitutional amendment to change the timeline for the judicial review of initiative petitions, including changing the judicial review period from within 100 days of a petition being filed to within 100 business days of a petition being filed, and allowing the judicial review period to begin 30 days after a general election when an initiative petition is filed within 30 days of the general election. A no vote opposes this constitutional amendment to change the timeline for the judicial review of initiative petitions, thus keeping the judicial review period as within 100 days of a petition being filed. Okay, so that loosely helped. I've already read more about it, so I can kind of make sense of what this is saying. So currently, within 100 days of a petition being filed, regardless of an election, that petition needs to be responded to. What this bill is trying to say is, hey, when there's a general election, there are so many other obligations and time restraints for that also dealing with a petition that's just been filed within the last 30 days of the general election, it's too much for them to also handle. So they're saying if it's 30 days before an election, so November 7th, if we filed the petition right now, What they're saying is that they would look at it. It just would be 30 days after the election. So November 7th, and then add 30 days, and then the 100 business days of a petition being filed would be followed at that point. This is my understanding currently. A quick overview. What would this amendment change about the citizens' initiative process in Maine? This amendment would change the judicial review period for citizens-initiated ballot measures in Maine, which is in place for the Secretary of State to determine the validity of written petitions, rather than require the judicial review to be completed within 100 days from when the initiative was filed with the Secretary of State. This amendment would require that the judicial review be completed within 100 business days from when the initiative was filed with the Secretary of State. This amendment would also require the judicial review period to begin 30 days after a general election if the initiative was filed within 30 calendar days before or after the general election. This judicial review period would also be 100 business days. I feel like they could have tried to explain that in a more straightforward way. Like, are you trying to confuse us? Because it's working. So there's more information here. I think, well, Ballotpedia has plenty of information. I'm not going to go through all of it. You can look into that yourself. I will, of course, include the links down below. So moving on, I'm going to pull up an article. I'm only going to read half of it right now because the other half involves question 6, and that's not what this one is about, so I'm going to skip that part for now. I will come back to it, but I will skip that part and read what pertains here. Questions about November's ballot measure. The Political Pulse crew has some answers. This is by Maine Public, specifically by Steve Missler and Kevin Miller. You're probably pretty familiar hearing their names at this point because they've covered quite a bit with the elections. This was published September 7th, so skipping the first part, not permanently, just for this video. Breaking down questions 5, 7, and 8. Of the 4 constitutional amendments, 2 would affect Maine laws that allow citizens to propose laws via referendum, a process sometimes referred to as direct initiative or citizens' initiative, or to repeal existing statutes through a process known as a people's veto. The ability to propose legislation through citizens' initiative has been used to pass consequential laws like raising the state's minimum wage, expanding eligibility for health coverage for low-income people through Medicare and ranked choice voting. People's vetoes were used to overturn a sweeping tax reform law in 2010, as well as the laws that repealed Maine's same-day voter registration law in 2011. The Citizens' Initiative and People's Veto procedures are enshrined in the Maine Constitution, and so are the procedures for qualifying for the ballot. Question 5 and 7 on this year's November ballot make changes directly affecting those procedures. Question 5 gives election officials more time. Question 5 asks Maine voters, do you favor amending the Constitution of Maine to change the time period for judicial review of the validity of written petitions from within 100 days of the date of filing to within 100 business days from the date of filing of a written petition in the office of the Secretary of State, with an exception for petitions filed within 30 calendar days before or after a general election? At its core, question 5 is designed to give state election officials more time to make sure citizens-initiated proposals have legitimately qualified for the ballot. Before campaigns proposing citizens' initiative laws can put their legislation on the ballot, they first have to qualify by gathering some signatures from Maine voters. The qualifying threshold changes after each gubernatorial election, but the process of validating those petition signatures is a painstaking one that requires state election staff to comb through tens of thousands of petitions to make sure the signatures on them are real people, not forgeries or duplicates. It's an important part of the qualification process, and aspiring campaigns have been rejected for irregularities or turning in signatures that don't match the ones voters have on file with the state. I never thought about that. I have a signature on file with the state. I mean, I always do it relatively the same, but it's also changed over the years a little. I just didn't know that. It's an important part of the qualification process, and aspiring campaigns have been rejected. Okay, it happened in 2016 when the Secretary of State rejected an effort by a campaign to build a casino in southern Maine. Under the Maine Constitution, staff for the election division has an allotted amount of time to perform this verification work once campaigns begin turning in petition. That's what Question 5 seeks to change. While Question 5 states that it changes the time for judicial review of ballot petitions, it really gives election officials more time to examine them and make sure they're legitimate. As Deputy Secretary of State Julie Flynn testified when supporting the bill that led to Question 5 in March, the legislation does not change the amount of time a petition campaign has to gather signatures, nor the lifespan of those signatures. It also does not change the time frame in which the court may conduct judicial review, a process that allows campaigns to challenge election officials' decisions on petition validity in court. Why are election officials backing this change now? Because last year they were slammed by the timing of petition submissions administering the 2022 election. Staff were forced to work 35 straight days to accomplish both tasks as prescribed in law, incurring overtime and other costs. But Flynn believes pulling that off again might not be possible in the future, potentially compromising the integrity of the validity process or affecting how state officials conduct elections. So that does make a lot of sense to me. It continues on to Question 7, but again, we're only dealing with Question 5 in this video. So that makes a lot of sense to me, where there's a lot to do, and 35 days straight, that's pretty horrendous. That's pretty horrendous. And I mean, we want them sharp and articulate and with it, but how can you be when you're working 35 days straight? I mean, I work overtime frequently, so I'll work 6 days a week. I still get that 7th day off. I could try and work all the way through, but I also want to live for something. I don't just want to work. That being said, there are times when you have to work, so get to the grindstone and work. And at this point, I mean, I'm not making money from YouTube, but I'm treating this as like a part-time job. So kind of in a way, I have 2 jobs at this point, but I'm okay with that because I'm having a lot of fun doing this. But I think come election time, I'm going to be a little frustrated because I'm getting more informed than I ever have before, so I'm getting my own distinct opinions about each of these things. And I know that most people don't have that opportunity or the ability to do that, which again is one reason that I'm creating these videos, so that you can listen to them in the car, on the bus home, just in your shuttle home. We don't really have that great of bus systems here, but people shuttle and carpool together. Wherever you're at, just kind of landscaping, cleaning up for the fall. I hope you can watch these videos and that they bring you something beneficial. I have, I'll read. This is another one I'm only going to read part of because it only pertains to part of what's here. It's the NG Exchange ballot, November ballot, questions 5 through 8, constitutional amendments. The November 7th ballot includes 4 proposed amendments to the Maine Constitution. All 4 measures passed in the legislature by a 2/3 margin as required to get on the ballot, but they will not become law unless a majority of voters approve them in the November referendum election. For the complete Maine Citizens Guide to the Referendum Election, prepared by the Secretary of State's office, with full text of each proposed law, fiscal notes, Attorney General opinions, and more, click here for a brief overview and read on. You'll be able to click on that when I have the ngexchange.org link down below. I'm not going to include both. Question 5. I'm not going to read it again because I've read it several times and it's a mouthful. So specifically about question 5, yada yada yada, for petitions filed within 30 calendar days before or after a general election. Background from the Nonpartisan League of Women Voters of Maine. This amendment would change the amount of time the Secretary of State's office has to review petition signatures from 100 days to 100 business days. Oh, I didn't notice that distinction before. 100 days to 100 business days. It would also make an exception for petitions filed within 30 days of a general election, starting the review period after that. The purpose of this amendment is to give the Secretary of State's office more time to review petition signatures. A yes vote means you support amending the Constitution to change the amount of time to review a petition. A no vote means you don't want to change the amount of time. Context from the Bangor Daily News. These two items, question 5 and 7, were supported by Maine Secretary of State Shenna Bellows' office and apply to an arcane but important part of the state's election system. Question 5 is response to the workload in the Secretary of State's office, giving them more time to review signatures for Maine's referendums. It came after a busy winter in 2022 in which workers had to verify 159,000 signatures while making election preparations, running recounts, and doing ranked choice tallies. Now they have only 30 days to verify signatures. The proposed law and legislation action, LD 1012, resolution proposing an amendment to the Constitution of Maine regarding the timing of judicial review of the determination of the validity of written petitions. Again, that was NG Exchange. And then one more, this one comes from Spectrum News by Susan Cover, published on October 18th. A proposed constitutional amendment on the November 7th ballot seeks to give state officials a chance to run elections without having to certify citizen petitions at the same time. Secretary of State Shenna Bellows asked lawmakers to approve the change following the 2022 election cycle, when 2 citizen petitions landed on her desk during the fall election season. The Maine Constitution required her office to certify the petitions within 30 days, which meant overtime, canceled vacations, the hiring of temporary workers, and the use of state employees from other agencies to get the job done, Bellows said. It almost killed us, she said. The timing meant 11 staffers found themselves in an unprecedented situation, having to review over 159,000 signatures across 2 citizen initiatives within 30 calendar days while simultaneously preparing for a general election and then having to conduct a ranked choice central count, several recounts, and the final statewide tabulation, Deputy Secretary of State Julie Flynn told lawmakers in March. In response, 2/3 of the lawmakers, which means support from Democrats, Republicans, and Independents, approved the constitutional amendment which will appear on the ballot as question 5. It reads, do you favor amending the Constitution of Maine to change the time period for judicial review of the validity of written petitions from within 100 days of the date of filing to within 100 business days from the date of filing of a written petition in the office of the Secretary of State, with an exception for petitions filed within 30 calendar days before or after a general election? They tricked me into reading that. I wasn't going to read it again. Behind the question is legislative approval of a blackout period, meaning election staff will not be required to review petitions in the 30 days before an election or the 30 days after. Petitioners will still be allowed to hand them in to the state any time. Part of the tension with the current system comes from the timing of November's elections coupled with the beginning of the legislative season in December or January. Those who sponsor citizen initiatives such as the 4 on this ballot this November need to have their signatures submitted to the state within 25 or 50 days at the start of the session, depending on whether it's the first or second regular session, for their idea to be considered by lawmakers. The change from 100 days to 100 business days will mean if a decision by the Secretary of State's office is challenged in court, state election workers won't have to work weekends or holidays to fill their obligations, Bellows said. It doesn't change people's right to petition at all, she said. Okay. So that was pretty in-depth, going over question 5, and it does span into question 7, so we'll probably touch on it a little bit again with that one. I want to end it there on this video. I hope that you found this video informative and just kind of lighthearted. I'm trying to bring the news to you as most palatable as possible. So if you thought I did a good job, please go ahead and hit the subscribe button so you know when I have other videos that are coming out. And when it comes to these questions, I'm probably going to have them come out like every 12 or 15 hours. So it's going to be just one after another. Plus I have a couple other videos I had already recorded and I've been pushing off because I was waiting for an open date. Those videos are just going to come out double. So whatever video comes out, it'll just come out with that video that day. And hopefully that helps the algorithm. I'm trying to reach as many people as I can before November 7th. I just think it's very important to stay informed. So if you've listened this far in the video, thank you so much. Please go ahead and like and comment down below. I love to hear feedback. I love to respond to feedback. And if I get something good, I'll definitely bring it up here. And who knows? I mean, I'm open to having discussions. So if somebody wants to have some kind of debate or discussion on here, I would love that. All right, until the next video, y'all have a great day.